Good morning. Want to welcome you to the DJ and Wedding Planner podcast, our second episode. I want to welcome everybody, Tony Hernandez,
Carmen Davila Hernandez.
and welcome to our second edition. Today we're going to be talking about a few topics. We're going to be talking about obviously what's going on around the world, and we're also going to be talking to
To Jessica Portalatin. She is a business attorney. We actually have her joining us today to give us some insight on on things. Jessica, are you there?
Yes. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey,
we're doing good.
doing great. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So, my name is Jessica Portalatin. I'm the founding attorney of Portalatin Law Firm, and our firm focuses on business law, which what that means is we help business owners and entrepreneurs with setting up their corporations and their LLCs, registering their trademarks, and most of all, getting their contracts in order.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So we have Jessica here today because we're going to be discussing just a few things. Currently, obvious, you guys understand that we're going through a little bit of a crisis in our industry. We have had a lot of postponements and cancellations. So the topic of deposits, retainers, are we supposed to be giving back money? Are we supposed to be honoring A, B, and C? So I thought, what better idea than to bring somebody who has experience in, what businesses should be preparing for. And if we are not, like if you look at your contract and maybe you don't have some of the tidbits that Jessica's going to go through today, this gives us time to fix that. So Jessica, do you want to give us a little bit of insight on, what you feel a lot of the contracts should have, or maybe more of like a Q&A, right? Maybe
Yeah.
ask her a few things. I know that when I spoke to you, we were talking about retainers, non-refundable deposits. Can you touch briefly into that?
Right. It was funny because when we first talked about that, I didn't know that that was such a big deal in your industry.
Yes.
As I was looking through and doing a little research, I saw that it was a really big deal. And the reason I was surprised was because for us, really, mostly in Florida, when you speak retainer, it usually has to do with the law profession, right?
Right.
So a lot of people think of there's two types of retainers, but what they think of is the true retainer, which is I'm going to pay this attorney a monthly fee, and that's non-refundable. I'm reserving that attorney for that time frame. And I think what you were explaining is that many people in your industry use that as, okay, this is non-refundable because I paid you to reserve you for that time, right?
Correct.
So I think more than anything, regarding using the word retainer versus deposits, what's important, because sometimes they're used interchangeably, and also the case law varies with every state, right? And just to be clear, today I'm going to be talking really just about Florida, okay? Because
Okay.
I'm a Florida attorney.
Got it.
But I think the more important than debating the difference between each word, I think the importance is to make clear to clients what is refundable and what is not, and why in your contract. So how can you do that? The best way to do that is doing a payment schedule and also including a clear cancellation clause. So if X happens, this is what you get back. And I know a lot of wedding planners do have payment schedules, but there's some that don't. And some include payment schedules, but don't include cancellation clauses. So having both and making it very clear on what is refundable and what is not is very important to have in your contract. And it's important to be strategic in the way you structure your payment schedules, because it's more likely that money that became that becomes refundable for services rendered rather than services not rendered, right? So I can ask for my money back more easily for something that you haven't given me the service for rather than something that you have. So that's why payment schedules are also very important. So for example, if you charge an upfront lump sum of $10,000 for a wedding, all inclusive, right? This includes you from taking them to show the venue to helping them on the day of their wedding. Um, and the bride gets cold feet halfway through this, right? A couple months in. She can argue that part of that fee was not earned, right? because you only got her halfway, so she should only pay you halfway. But if you have an in-depth, detailed payment schedule, that will help to avoid those issues and going into litigation because it's very clear cut what's refundable and why. Okay.
Okay.
So that's very important. And keep in mind, right? If the contract is breached by a planner, even if something says it's non-refundable, it can become refundable because it was your breach. So that's something else that it's important to keep in mind.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Good insight, definitely.
All right.
okay. Go ahead.
So you say that if we breach the contract for whatever reason, then obviously the non-refundable deposit or retainer is refundable.
Could be.
Yeah, it
Could.
can be. So
Oh,
if it's for example, and I don't mean breach by, for example, what's happening now, right? This doesn't count as you breaching the contract because, and I'll go later on into it. It's things outside of your control, right? The coronavirus, for
Hmm.
example, is outside of your control. So we're not talking about that just yet. But let's say for some reason the reason that the contract can't continue is your fault, the contractor's fault, then yes, that person could ask for that money back because it could have been for the inaction or the negligence of that person.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a question. Let's just say, right, I was supposed to do a wedding. I'm the wedding planner. And we were scheduled to do the wedding, let's say, this upcoming weekend. The
Hmm.
venue's still on. They're saying, let's do the wedding. But with all the things going on with like the CDC, if I personally feel like it's not a safe environment for myself and my staff, am I still going to be in breach of contract? Is there something that I can put in my contract to make sure I protect myself and my staff?
So, just disclaimer, right? This pandemic is something very new. So there is no case law specific to situations like this that can cause health harm, right?
Hmm.
Harm to your health, and so the the what I'm going to be telling you are strategies,
Okay.
but there is no case law yet because this is still currently happening, right? And the courts are closed, so it's not even that courts are taking on these cases just yet. But yes, there are things you can include in your contracts. Of course, you could include language such that if to the discretion of the planner, there is a high risk to the safety or health um, of the staff or anything to that sort, you could include that kind of language that they can that you can remove yourself from that situation and it would not be considered a breach, right? Because it's a risk, right? But it has to be, it can't just be like, oh, I'm scared to get a cold, right? It has to be something very concrete, and and the language has to be very specific, and I can't tell you off the top of my head, but yes, you can include language like that, that if it is a serious and high risk to the health or safety of your staff, then you can remove yourself from that situation and it's not a breach. Regarding whether, I mean, at this point, there will be very many cases with this same situation that you just argued, right? But I do believe that there will be um, case law in favor of you guys that this will not be a breach. So if there was a wedding this weekend and someone was saying, "Hey, you need to come. You promised. I paid you
Right.
for this weekend, right?" And there's a pandemic and there's a government shutdown, basically saying you shouldn't be leaving your home for anything other than groceries and pharmacies.
Hmm.
You would technically be breaking the law or a government order in order to fulfill this contract, which it's not practical, which is another, which is a defense to a contract obligation, which I'll go through that either way. So there's three kind of ways to get out of it, right? The first one is the first force majeure clause,
Hmm.
which I know that you wanted me to talk about. So what this clause does is it protects from situations kind of like what's happening right now that are um, unprecedented and kind of prevent someone from fulfilling their obligation, contractual obligations. So usually, what's included in there are acts of God, war, terrorism, strikes. That those would prevent you from actually doing your part, right?
Hmm.
Um, the first thing I would say is everyone should look at their contracts because all force majeure clauses are not made the same, and usually they take into account the specific language that's in there, right? So if it says XYZ, you can't get out of there because of G. All right. So unless depending on how the courts interpret it. So that's the first thing I would say. Look at the force majeure clause. But just because you don't have one doesn't mean that you cannot get out of performing in a contract. There's also things called the impossibility doctrine. Uh, and what that means is that something like a government shutdown, for example, or a pandemic has made it impossible for one of the parties to fulfill their obligations. So, for example, this pandemic has made it impossible or impractical for you to fulfill that wedding obligation this weekend. Okay? So, that's a possible defense to breach a contract. All right? I hope that answered your question.
No,
I
no,
know that
no,
was a long thing. I'm
absolutely. No, 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 I
sorry.
love it. Keep going. We love this.
Very interesting
Yeah,
stuff. So, I mean,
yeah,
I have stuff similar to this on my contract. Um, in the case, obviously, of hurricane or rain, I mean, we do a
Right.
lot of events out here in South Florida, and being a DJ and putting our electronics and stuff like that, obviously outside in the open air, sometimes clients are like, no, we want to proceed with our wedding and we want to keep going. And obviously, it starts drizzling or raining or stuff like that. And obviously, computers, electronics, and water don't mix. So in my contract, obviously, I have stated that if it's unsafe, for us to operate, we're able to terminate our services at that moment.
Mhm. Yeah. I would even just say unsafe is very. I would keep unsafe, but I would also specify, for your contracts, the simply, if there's rain, then that's enough because safety could be so many things, right? And it could be an arguable thing that okay, the rain is not making you unsafe. See what I'm saying? So keep that in there, but also, specify specifically. Okay, this is what triggers unsafe. Rain triggers unsafe. Okay, I'm just giving you guys examples because that kind of ambiguity is what causes a lot of people kind of to just okay, let's go to court and figure out and define it. You know what I mean? And that's just a waste of money. So the more clear that you can be in your contracts, the better. That's why I always tell my clients, great. There's a lot of there's many template contracts all over online. There's LegalZoom. There's everything. But every industry is different. So like, for example, what you just said, rain for you is a deal breaker. But rain, maybe for Carmen, is not a deal breaker,
right,
right? Because she's inside.
right.
So, so those things need to be specified in the contract. It's good to make custom contracts for that same reason. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Nice.
Wow. Interesting. No, 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 definitely. So, let me ask you a question. When and I know I mentioned it, if, for example, we have clients who are like, well, we understand and we don't want to deposit back, but we want to use that as a credit for next event, right? Is there
Hmm.
a limit that we have to pretty much have their date, their credit on hold in our company? Is there a limit? Is there, does it have to be 12 months, 24 months? Is that up to us? I was just curious.
I think that if you are going to give that as an option, it should be in writing for how long that credit should be. And if not, then it's understood that it's an indefinite credit.
Okay.
Unless of course you close down your business and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's something you should definitely have in writing because if not, if you're giving them a credit and it's 12 months, but you didn't tell them it's 12 months and it's nowhere in writing that it's 12 months and they're under that assumption, again, you're putting yourself in a situation where you might be calling litigation, you know?
Got it. Got it.
Um, so again, something again to include in your contracts, and if not, that could be something that is an addendum. So if you have an existing contract with a client right now, and she's like, "Yeah, I would prefer a credit," you're like, "No problem." If you want to include 12 months, I or 2 years, depending, because I know that, for example, for weddings, venues are you got to do them a year and a half in advance, right?
Right.
So maybe if you want to do 24 months, right, you do an addendum with your client saying like, "Listen, this amount of money has been given credit for these kinds of services for the next 24 months between X and Y. Sign, date. That's it. You know what I mean? It's very simple, nothing complicated, and just add that to your contract, and that way it's clear. Okay.
Got it.
Very cool. Well, you're listening to the DJ and the Wedding Planner podcast. We have Jessica on today, and we're taking some of questions that you guys have given us, and she's given us some advice on things that are going on and how to pursue with contracts. There's been a lot of question in the industry whether you have to, return the retainers, the deposits. Is it legal to keep them? So she's been answering some of those questions at this time. And it's very informative, for our vendors, our clients to be able to know and have the knowledge. I mean, the last couple of days, I've had a lot of clients that have been, emailing us that they want to basically cancel their contracts. And, there's been a lot of those questions that, we wanted to make sure that we were covered. So thank you, Jessica, for answering some of those questions. Carmen, do you have any other questions for Jessica at this time?
I think we touched base on a few things. Jessica, is there anything that maybe we previously discussed that you can touch upon? Any of the questions that I had sent you earlier?
I mean, just in general, guys, take this time to really look through your contracts. Now that this is happening, those worries that you have right now, those are the exact thoughts that you need to think, okay, that's what I should have included in my contract. And if you're having that worry, that means you probably don't have it in there. So just look through it, know what you have in your contracts, take this time to review it and see that those concerns are addressed. And if not, definitely go see, a lawyer that will include all of that in there to make sure that you're completely protected, even in these kinds of crazy times.
Got it. And how can our clients and our friends, our vendors, how can they reach you? What would be the best contact to, connect you guys so you can, maybe they can hire you and you can be their attorney? What would be the best way to reach you?
Sure. They could give me a call at the office, 305-384-7874, or they can email me at Jessica, Jessica, at contractlawmiami.com. You could also visit my website, contractlawmiami.com, and get more information about the areas that I can assist you with.
Perfect.
I do have one question because I've seen this in a couple of, hotels, hospitality, and other vendors that have been doing this. Is it legal to charge a rebooking fee for some of these events? Say they cancel their event or they postpone it and then they want a new date. Obviously online I've read that some people are charging these fees to rebook the person's event.
Okay. I would have to look at specific case law in Florida for that. However, what I can say is if the cancellation was not at fault of that party, charging a rebooking fee may be an issue. Okay, because it's essentially wasn't their fault, and you're rebooking them, so you're kind of double charging them, right? But again, I don't want to give you too specific of an answer because I would have to look at specific case law for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I would say be wary of that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not doing it. I just wanted to, I thought it would be good to put it on here and let people know about that. I'm pretty much moving all the funds that they have with us, whether they, retainer or they've given us additional funds. I'm just, moving all those funds to the new date.
All the non-refundable
Right.
deposits.
With no penalties at the
Right.
time. So
We're moving all those, correct. Crediting the client, allowing them to, for a next event, etc. So perfect.
Right.
Okay.
And awesome, guys.
Yeah. And then any other things that you can tell us, Jessica? Any words of advice?
Ah, man.
No, you've been awesome. You've been awesome. You've been great. No?
I mean, eat healthy, exercise. No, I'm kidding. No, basically what I said, it's okay to ask. I would say ask questions. There's a lot of resources online, and I've seen there's a lot of blogs, but I think, sometimes people are regenerating the same misinformation. So I would say, go speak to a professional regarding if you have a question about what to include in your contract. I would say speak to a professional. Don't just look at blogs online because sometimes it's the same people just throwing out the same information that they heard from a person that they heard from someone else. So, to speak to a professional, know what you know, and, protect
awesome.
yourself from contact, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me.
No, it's
Thank
our pleasure.
you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello. All right. So that was Jessica. You're on the DJ and Wedding Planner podcast. You know, that was some great insight and some great information about what's going on, how, we can improve our contracts and, and protect ourselves in the industry. Obviously, we always want to help clients and be there for them. Obviously, that's always our number one priority. But we also have to protect ourselves as small business owners. A lot of us are going through this, and and it's imperative as an industry that we help each other and know the facts, what we have to do to get through this. We are small business owners, and a lot of these funds that we've already collected. Not only are we reserving our dates, but they're also working as cash flow to be able to keep our business open. So if we have to, you know, refund all that money that we've collected and used, I mean, a lot of the businesses will go bankrupt. So that's why we wanted to have her on the show and get a lot of these insights on, protecting us as business owners.
Yeah, same thing pretty much. Because I know this has been a big question with, my clients, a lot of my couples. They're like, Carmen, where do we stand with our deposits, with the venue, with the DJ, with the decorator, with the florist, with everybody, pretty much. And then we definitely are encouraging, once again, postpone, don't cancel your event. There's so much that goes into planning a wedding, an event, a quince, a social, that it's sad to have to cancel it. We will get through this. And I always say, guys, just postpone. It gives you enough time to, rethink everything, give your guests enough time to get back on their feet, because it's not just, unfortunately, it'll be your guest also that if they have to travel, if they have to do A, B, and C, it gives them time to, to be able to still join you, still be part of your happy days, and, just keep those things in mind once again.
I mean, definitely. I mean, we've been trying to encourage all of our clients to obviously postpone, but there's those clients that, just want to cancel. I mean,
Right.
I've gotten, a handful in the last week, and obviously I try to encourage them. Hey, let's move the date. Just hold it. Let me know a new date. I mean, and I've had about two recently that just completely gone and no, we want to cancel. We can't afford it at this time. We're just gonna go ahead and do that. I mean, and as a professional, you try to encourage them, talk to them, but at the end of the day, it's their event. You could only go as far as the client wants to go.
Exactly.
And that's why we wanted to have Jessica on and kind of get that information, so we know, as business owners, what we have to do. There is a lot of stuff coming out. Where us as business owners, we could get unemployment, we could apply for SBAs and stuff like that. We're looking into different options right now. We're still hopeful. Obviously, they extended the stay at home till April 30th. So basically, the whole month of April now is gone as far as events. I mean, I was holding on to about 5 or 6 events at the end of the month, the last week, and this morning I just, obviously with what went on yesterday, we got, the last couple of emails of those. I believe it's April 28th, April 26th, where the, client says, they didn't want to, trust me, the client that I'm just postponing their quinces for the last week of April, they didn't want to, postpone it. That's actually the date of the birthday girl. So that's her birthday on that Saturday. She definitely didn't want to, but, well, it is what it is at this point, and as a business and industry, we have to adhere by what's going on, and hopefully come out stronger after this. I mean, I even had a couple of proms right here in the middle of April that obviously schools are out. I've been in touch with the senior class sponsors, the activities directors. And those right now they're on hold. They just go, we're postponing for right now. We don't know what's going to happen. because they don't know if they're going back to school or not. If they go back to school, they're hoping that they can move those dates. But if they don't, then obviously those proms and graduations are completely gone. I mean, what are you going to tell a school? Postpone? Obviously, once June 1st hits and school's over,
I would like to say that all these seniors, though, deserve to still have their proms. And I'm not saying we're going to do them now, we're not going to do them next month, but I think regardless, it's a memory that it's really sad that you're not going to get the opportunity to. So I would say summer proms, once this is over, those kids should still have their proms.
Well, there's an idea there. If the schools don't do it, I think there's an opportunity as an industry, floral companies, hotels, venues, us as entertainment and DJ companies, where we can maybe even put something together as an industry and do it for them.
Yep. I say let's do it.
And we come together as an industry and we throw the biggest prom South Florida's ever seen for all the kids.
I love that idea.
So that there's definitely an idea. We could get a few sponsors to obviously cover some of the costs involved. But I don't think we charge them. We do it for South Florida. They could pre-register, and I think there's definitely a great idea there to come up with. Absolutely.
100%.
So obviously we got to wait and see what happens, but there's definitely an idea there in the summertime. So
great. So thank you guys. We will definitely continue to have our podcast. Just so you know, we will be having Mackie with Brides of Florida on our next podcast.
Yeah.
And we're also working with a very surprise guest. We won't let them know yet who it is. Very, very well-known person. He's pretty much set the standard for events. I'd like to say that, especially in our catering world. So we're working on having that special person on our podcast as well. And any topics and anything that you guys feel that you want us to get some more information on and pass that to you, please let us know, because we're open to any suggestions. If any of you want to join us on the podcast, please, let me know, let Tony know. We'd love to have you. And keep on with these amazing and creative ideas that I see. Carrie, I see that you're on here, and I just have to give you a shout out. Carrie with Just to Party, amazing. I really love that you figured something out and you were like, you know what, this is not going to hold me back. We're still going to do it. We're still going to be making some money, get the business out there, give people, make people happy that it's their birthday and still show up with some balloons and do that delivery that you're doing. Awesome. It's great that you're doing that. Isabella's here joining us, guys, because she's our little producer. You can see her in the back. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Tony,
absolutely.
Anything else that you have to say?
As an industry, we're all coming together and coming up with creative ways to do things. Jeff Green on our Facebook Live as well. He's been doing some amazing stuff with the FIU and the hospitality group over there. Maybe we can even have Jeff on one of our next one.
That would actually be awesome.
Jeff Green has been in the industry for years as an entertainer. He's definitely one of those people that been through a lot in this industry, and he has a lot to say. So Jeff, thank you for coming in and sharing with us here. We're just doing our little part to be able to get through this as a community.
Awesome.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on our second episode of the DJ and Wedding Planner. My name is Tony Hernandez.
And I'm Carmen Davila Hernandez.
All right, thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.